Hi and welcome to the new handcraft woodwork video. This video will be about ripping down an old pallet and turning it into something new. A simple and sturdy stool. So, we're ripping down the pallet now with a circular saw. I'm no stranger to taking pallets apart, having deconstructed around 50 of them to build my workshop. Although I do usually use just a hammer and a flat crowbar, which preserves the length of the planks. Using a circular saw is undoubtedly quicker, but you are losing a lot of the wood. To be honest, I've taken apart so many pallets that I was just feeling a bit lazy and wanted the quicker, easier option, and settled for using the leftovers as firewood. We are going to take the rest of the pallet apart with the hammer and bar, however, as we do need some longer lengths for the legs. Now we're using the utility bar to break apart the last pieces, to get the longer lengths we will use for the legs. You learn some tricks while taking pallets apart, hammering a plank back down for instance, which forces the heads of the nails out slightly so you can remove them easily and then the plank comes free. It's easy to split pallet wood at this stage, so it's important to be careful and sensitive or we won't be left with much good wood at the end. Having a system really helps as well, as it is a simple and repetitive job, so if we notice where we can streamline it and make slight adjustments, we will save ourselves time and energy. We've finally got the pallet apart, and it's time to clear up and organise the lumber for processing. We will gather the small offcuts from the planks to be used as firewood throughout the winter, and the larger blocks are made of a composite material which includes glue, so they can't be safely burned. I have used them to build things in the past, but this time they're going straight in the bin, as the storage space in the workshop is full right now, and I don't have a project to use them for immediately. Now we've come to the processing. As we know, pallet wood is rough and often dirty, so it's important that we check the lumber over carefully, inspecting the surface for any hidden nails or other metal things, or even small stones that have been embedded in the wood over time. Even just one of those can completely wreck the blade and the thicknesser. The blade needs to be razor sharp and perfectly even to give a nice, straight, smooth cut. Passing these pieces through the thicknesser not only takes off the rough, dirty surface of the wood, leaving a smooth and clean new face underneath, but it also makes all the planks exactly the same thickness and gets them ready for a nice, tight glue up. It takes off a surprising amount of material. That's just from passing those planks through once or twice. We can see how vital the dust extraction is here. The shop would have been covered with that otherwise. We are passing the pieces over the jointer now, which is the top half of the machine. We are using a fence here set at 90 degrees, and that keeps everything square. We will only joint one side of each piece, as they are going to be ripped down on the table saw. We are now ripping all the shorter lengths down on the table saw. These will be used for the top or seat of the stool. They are about 40 millimeters wide, which is how thick the top of the stool will be. Pushing the pieces tight up against the fence makes sure they are all cut to the same even width all the way along. Now it's time for the glue up. Arranging the pieces in formation before applying the glue allows us to check for any imperfections and adjust accordingly. When we are happy with how it looks, we can then begin applying glue to one face of each piece, except the last one. Making sure there is a thin, even layer of glue will actually strengthen the joins, as both faces will be fully in contact with one another. We can see the value of smooth, square planks here, as they allow for a tight, seamless join with integrity and strength. Now we're taking the longer boards and cutting them down to the length that we want the legs of the stool to be. In this case, around 500 millimeters. This is a small chop saw, so the wider boards have to be flipped and cut twice. One day perhaps there will be a larger workshop with a larger chop saw. The lengths are now being ripped to 60 millimeters wide, as they will be glued together in a bundle of 3 to make the rough square form of each leg, which will then be turned on the lathe into their final shape. So here we are creating the legs, gluing 3 pieces together to form the rough square post. This stool is 3-legged, so we are making 3 bundles, 1 for each leg. The black bag is to protect the worktop from any excess glue that squeezes out during clamping. And we've come back the next day to release the clamps as the glue is dry and the joins are set. Now we've come to mark the centre point of the stool top and use a simple and effective trick to mark out a circle. Using the bandsaw, we will cut carefully along our line to shape the top into a nice neat circle, using a 6mm blade, which is good for cutting curves. This is an old 8-inch bandsaw picked up from auction. It does the job just fine on pieces of this size. It took a while to learn how to fit a new blade and adjust it correctly. There are a number of fine adjustments to make to keep the blade running smoothly on the wheel in the right position. There are some great YouTube videos to help with this. Once the circle is cut, we can begin sanding, with a very coarse grit at first. I'm very pleased with how the seat looks. The different wood grains come together to make a nice pattern. We can sand both top and bottom until smooth, and then sides as well, evening out any teeth marks left by the bandsaw blade. We will sand to a fine grit later. Now the circle is sanded, we can move on to round the edges with a trimmer. This is a basic Makita trimmer with a rounded corner bit. We're only taking off a bit of material here so it passes nice and easy. Now the top is finished apart from a final sand, and it looks good. Now we're going to move on to the legs and prepare them for the lathe. I realise I should probably be using a push stick here, so I sort that out. I do like my fingers whole if possible. We are slicing the corners off the posts to make them easier to turn on the lathe. The blade is set at a 45-degree angle, and the distance between the blade and the fence is 2/3 the width of the post, which cuts off the outer corner nicely. Fixing the piece into the lathe now, ready for turning. Just coming to sharpen the spindle gouge before turning, so it's nice and sharp and makes clean cuts with less effort and less stress on the wood. And off we go! My favourite part. Wood turning is so satisfying. I just love all the bits flying everywhere and the noise the chisel makes as it carves the wood. So exciting. I've heard someone describe it as painting with wood. So it's just a nice simple rounded post we're doing for this leg. I think this design suits the piece very well, which we will see at the end. I check the thickness of the post using calipers to get them even all the way down and all the legs the same as each other. Once both ends of the leg are turned, we begin sanding, removing any marks left by the chisel and smoothing out any bumps or undulations in the profile of the leg. Finally, we fill all the holes in the post from nails that were in the pallet. I'm using some basic natural colour wood filler here. I repeat this whole turning process for the other two legs. Now for the cleanup. This is definitely the messiest job in the workshop. I always enjoy seeing just how much was chipped and carved off the wood. It's almost always more than I thought. I have a finer brush for dusting off machinery and a rough one for the floor. Now all three legs are done, we can cut a slight angle of about 10 degrees on the top and bottom to give them a slight splay outwards from the stool. This increases the stability of the stool and also looks more pleasing, as it creates a nicer overall shape than if the legs went straight down. On this piece anyway. Now we're going to drill a hole in the top of the leg for a screw to fix the leg to the seat of the stool, making sure to drill at 90 degrees to the top edge, which will ensure a nice snug fit when it's attached to the seat. Now if you have bolts designed for this, great, but if you don't, you can do what I'm doing here and make some. We're going to make some sparks by chopping the heads off these screws. Don't worry, they can't feel anything. When half of the screw is sunk into the leg, we can now drill some holes in the underside of the seat. I've marked an equilateral triangle and measured the distance away from the stool edge I want the legs to be. When this is done, we can attach the legs. Some of them require a very firm twist to get them to the correct orientation. Now all the legs are in place, we begin oiling to seal the wood, preserve it and bring out the grain. I'm using boiled linseed oil here and rubbing it on with a sponge cloth. When it is saturated, I will wipe off the excess. And here's the finished piece. Very satisfying that this was an old pallet that would have otherwise gone to waste. If you've enjoyed this video, please consider subscribing to the channel, pushing the like button and leaving a comment. It really helps the channel grow. And if you like this piece, you can buy it from my Etsy shop. I will leave the link in the description below. Thank you for watching. Take care and see you on the next one.